Thank you for joining us for this special edition of KPBS News. I'm Amitha Sharma. During this newscast, we will showcase our reporting on the COVID-19 pandemic. Here are some of the key developments. Local health officials warn that a recent uptick in cases could push the county to roll back business reopenings as soon as next week. Most of it is driven by SDSU, where the school reports more than 700 cases in less than a month. San Diego's community colleges aren't taking the risk of reopening. They announced classes will remain virtual through spring 2021, with only a few exceptions. We know that SDSU hasn't been the only trouble spot. KPBS health reporter Taryn Mento got a hold of new records that show how local outbreaks are linked to areas known for their nightlife.
A night out in San Diego's historic Gaslamp district has taken on a different look during COVID. A blocked-off street is a makeshift promenade. Dining rooms sit in front of parking meters. Neighborhoods across the county are taking similar steps to protect the public and keep businesses running during the pandemic. But community outbreak data show more is at stake in this area. A KPBS analysis found the zip code that includes Gaslamp, Little Italy, and the East Village accounts for the highest number of outbreaks than any other in the county. An outbreak is defined as 3 or more cases that can be traced back to one location.
It wouldn't make sense with all the employees that are working down here and all the different establishments that our number would be higher than, say, Del Mar or La Jolla or other places. So,
Michael Trimble runs the neighborhood business district Gaslamp Quarter Association. He's not surprised by KPBS's findings, but he points to banners above him that show business owners personally pledging to help keep customers safe.
And they're going to know they're going to be in an environment where they can actually be comfortable and know they're not going to come down with COVID.
The pledge came after a Union Tribune reporter's photos in June that showed a sea of uncovered faces in the gas lamp.
It really lit a fire under my office and my association and really taught the merchants that people are watching what we're doing.
Data through late July show 14 outbreaks have occurred in 92101, but Trimble says he didn't know of any tied specifically to the gas lamp.
If I knew about it, and if it happened here, I would know about it. And at this point, I don't know of anyone who had an outbreak in the Gaslamp Quarter.
The Little Italy Association said 2 of its restaurants closed because of staff illnesses. The East Village Business Group didn't respond to messages. Overall, more than a third of the county's outbreaks have happened at businesses in just 4 zip codes. That includes 92109 in Pacific Beach.
It's not surprising it's happening here.
Sarah Burns is the executive director of Discover Pacific Beach.
People are coming into Pacific Beach, and with that, they're bringing symptoms and coronavirus.
She helps businesses understand and follow public health regulations to keep customers safe.
Businesses care about preventing outbreaks. I mean, their staff is probably the one most at risk, and they're trying to stay open to feed their families so that their staff can feed their families.
But 11 outbreaks have happened in the zip code, which also covers Mission Beach. One PB restaurant, El Prez, was ordered to close when video showed unmasked customers packed inside. Burns says she doesn't know if El Prez was linked to an outbreak, but welcomes the county's action.
That's what we want to see as a community, that those that are not following the rules or need assistance with the rules are getting it.
She says businesses that have had outbreaks have shut down to sterilize the facility and get workers tested, but none agreed to speak with KPBS.
A lot of this is more coming from staff outbreaks, not necessarily customer outbreaks, and they're taking care of what they need to take care of to reopen safely. I don't think any business wants to necessarily be associated with an outbreak.
The 2 other zip codes were located in the South Bay, and more than 40% of the outbreaks there happened in manufacturing and food processing facilities. County officials won't release the exact outbreak locations because they fear it will cause businesses to shy away from reporting them. But KPBS and Voice of San Diego are challenging that in court because we believe the public has a right to know.
98.4.
In the Gaslamp Business Association had Trimble hired events coordinator Laurel McFarland to help businesses follow public health rules. McFarland says businesses should be notifying customers if they have an outbreak, but not the public.
I do feel there's a responsibility to let your customers know, but I don't know if there is a responsibility to let everyone know, because it's really about keeping the people who came safe and knowledgeable.
But she says she'd follow whatever rules county officials put out.
If that's something they feel is we need to do more and do it publicly, then we'll follow those rules too. Everyone's just trying to follow the rules right now.
The county health department did not respond to requests for an interview. Taryn Mento, KPBS News.
The latest COVID-19 numbers can be found anytime at kpbs.org. Just click on the Tracking COVID-19 link and go to the case tracker and map. You'll see numbers broken down by zip code. Neighborhoods in Otay Mesa, Chula Vista, and Logan Heights are at the top of the list. COVID-19 restrictions at the border might last a while longer. Mexico wants to extend the ban on non-essential travel through October 21st. On Friday, the U.S. announced a similar ban at Canadian border crossings. Travel between the U.S. and Mexico has been restricted since March due to the pandemic. Baja California has seen more than 3,300 COVID-19 deaths. The Mexican consulate on India Street in downtown San Diego is the latest free testing site. People can get tested every Monday from 8 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. This is part of a larger outreach effort for Latino communities hit hard by the virus.
No matter your immigration status, and it is open and available to everyone in a safe, trusted community location.
Other free testing locations will include the San Luis Rey Mission in Oceanside and St. Anthony's Church in National City. Now to the evolving situation at San Diego State University. The city's biggest hotspot is at the center of a debate over whether its cases should even be included in the local metrics. We'll have more on that a bit later, but first, Matt Hoffman shows us how the university is trying to limit the spread.
I didn't think the testing would be so easy.
Students living on campus were lining up for mandatory coronavirus tests, a step implemented by SDSU officials after more than 700 students tested positive.
I think it's good, yeah. Might be a little late, but it's good.
Yeah. I think it's very responsible because my girlfriend, she goes to Cornell and she gets tested every 3 days.
Some students with underlying medical conditions are grateful that the university is taking this step.
It's been kind of scary because it feels like you're honestly playing tag or hide and go seek with something deadly.
But county officials are pushing to have SDSU's 700 plus cases discounted from their overall totals. Health officials say without those cases, we would avoid slipping back into more state-imposed coronavirus restrictions. County officials want the cases removed because they say SDSU is a community within a community. But campus officials, they tell us that 75% of the cases are among students who live off campus. So which is it? Is it contained or not?
The outbreak and the cases are associated with undergraduates that are living in the close proximity of the university, almost all primarily in the 92115 zip code, actually within blocks of the university.
Some students were shocked to hear that health officials are looking to exclude SDSU cases from the county's overall total.
I mean, that's crazy. Just they're really going to try and cover it up like that?
San Diego State is blocks away from homes and businesses, but health officials believe that the outbreak is largely contained to students.
We have very few cases that we can link to that population. It's at this point less than 10 that we're aware of.
At least one student has been hospitalized and others testing positive have been asymptomatic, but health officials say it's unclear if that's contributing to outbreaks among students.
I know lots of people who have tested positive. I'll talk to someone and I'll go oh, this COVID thing's so crazy. And they'll go yeah, I was positive. And then I didn't want to hang out with a bunch of other people, but they all said they were positive. So it was fine.
Some students we talked to say they were encouraged to complete this mandatory testing thanks to a coffee gift card from the school. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Classes began at UC San Diego in a little over a week. When they do, students and staff can take part in a new program that alerts them to potential exposure. Google and Apple worked on the technology. If a person tests positive for COVID-19, they can voluntarily give that information to the program. After that, alerts are sent anonymously to anyone who has recently been in proximity to that person's phone.
Those are the people who are going to benefit most. And in fact, here in San Diego County, most people who are diagnosed with COVID, we don't know where they got it, right? And so this really has the potential to limit the outbreaks because of that notification of strangers rather than household contacts.
UC San Diego hopes it can get 75% of the campus community to participate in the program. One more note on local schools. A district in North County is changing course. The Poway Unified School District will reopen 10 elementary schools on October 1st. Another 16 schools will reopen on the 12th. The district says families can choose to stick with virtual learning. Secondary schools, except for Abraxas High School, will remain virtual through at least November. All students will be required to wear masks at school. And in case you missed it this week, stream our latest KPBS Community Conversation. Education reporter Joe Hong moderated a panel on distance learning and the students who are most vulnerable to falling behind. You can find it right now at kpbs.org and the KPBS YouTube page. As we mentioned earlier, there's a debate over whether COVID-19 numbers at SDSU should be included in the county's overall metrics. Doing so risks more pain for businesses, many of which are already hanging by a thread. Matt Hoffman reports on how local leaders are trying to find a workaround.
It'll hurt. It'll hurt. We've seen an influx ever since we reopened, and it's been great. You know, football season's here, sports are, doing great. The Padres are doing great.
Businesses say in the short time they've been allowed to reopen indoor operations, customers have been responding positively.
A lot of people love going out. A lot of people are tired of being cooped up at home, and we've done our fair share and our job of keeping people healthy and safe. We disinfect. Our employees are knowledgeable. They wash their hands. We do what we have to do to stay open.
San Diego County is currently in the state's red tier, where many businesses can be open indoors at a limited capacity versus what we're heading toward next week in the purple tier. For many, sliding backwards and having to close inside for a third time would be tough, especially for those like this salon and spa, which is classified as a personal care business. The owner tells me she can't work outside and during the pandemic has had to close for more than 4 months. If we hit the purple tier, she says she'll be forced to close again.
Many of our other counties are watching us very, very closely. They are also at their wits' end in terms of a kind of a tipping point of where do we start to break from the governor.
This could be the tipping point. The county says if it weren't for more than 700 cases among SDSU students, we would not be facing more restrictions. And they're asking the state to discount those cases. But already twice, the state has said they aren't budging.
So the answer is no.
We believe we have done everything to protect the public, and that the general public and businesses are in no way, shape, or form at risk or responsible.
The state's refusal to move could draw legal action from the county. We know where the supervisors stand on the issue of eliminating SDSU's cases.
They're a community in and of themselves, and I think there's a really good argument to be made to exempt the numbers coming out of San Diego State University. And
it is a kind of an isolated population.
We should consider the SDSU cases as a unique circumstance.
And I agree that the San Diego State students should not, they should be pulled out of the our numbers.
I don't think the San Diego State cases should be included.
But today, Fletcher issued a statement saying we are in a battle against coronavirus, not the state, and respects their no decision. The question now is, will supervisors take the step of legal action to keep businesses like gyms, restaurants, and churches from having to stop indoor operations?
The constant back and forth, open, close, open, close, open, close, is very detrimental to the human psyche and to public trust.
The debate over SDSU's numbers will stretch into next week. The Board of Supervisors sent a letter to the governor to reconsider, and on Tuesday, the board will have another special meeting on the topic. Even though bars, restaurants, and gyms have been allowed to reopen in limited capacity, playgrounds are still sitting vacant with caution tape around them. KPBS investigative reporter Claire Tregerser tried to find out what's going on with the region's swings and slides.
We all have that thing we miss most from our pre-pandemic life.
Hold it up. Okay.
For 4-year-old James McCann, it's the playground near the small condo he shares with his parents in University Heights. Ask him why he can't go there anymore, and he answers with the euphemism his parents were using until he caught on.
Because the thing going around.
Now he's left playing baseball and dancing in the grass at Trolley Barn Park.
Nice.
Still, he's optimistic.
They stay closed for a while and then they open it up.
When might that be?
When the thing stops.
He might be right. Unlike everything else, playgrounds aren't part of any phased reopening plans at the local or state level. The decision rests with the California Department of Public Health, which has said parks can be open with restrictions. One of them is that playgrounds stay closed. A spokesman declined repeated interview requests, but answered questions over email. He said playgrounds haven't opened because, quote, the possible large number of individuals touching the same surface, particularly younger children who are less likely to practice hand hygiene and wear masks. But multiple doctors and infectious disease experts tell KPBS that playgrounds are far safer than indoor activities, citing a growing body of evidence that COVID-19 is much more likely to be passed when breathing and talking, not by touching surfaces.
If it's safe to go to a restaurant that's serving beer where you can hang out inside and drink with your friends and linger for several hours, it is certainly safe for your kid to go down a slide.
Rebecca Fielding Miller, an epidemiologist at UC San Diego, bristled at the idea that bars and restaurants have been able to reopen indoors at limited capacity, while playgrounds, which are completely outdoor spaces, stay closed.
This is a pretty palpable demonstration of who is and is not at the table in these conversations about what reopens.
Dr. Mark Sawyer, an infectious disease specialist at Rady's Children's Hospital, says he worries more about kids not getting exercise and not socializing than the small chance they pick up the virus from a play structure that sits in the sun all day.
We clearly have spent the last 2 decades trying to get kids to be physically active. And, I'm sure that some folks have a challenge keeping their kids physically active in the current situation.
While the playground rules apply across the state, a few cities appear to not be enforcing them with the same vigor as San Diego. For example, photos sent to KPBS from Huntington Beach and Sacramento show no yellow caution tape or signs saying playgrounds are closed. Meanwhile, in San Diego, police don't spend any time writing mass citations, but playground closures are enforced with caution tape, orange fencing, and even roadblock signs padlocked to the top of slides. The epidemiologist Fielding Miller calls it
security theater of closing playgrounds is a way to demonstrate that something is being done.
Some families KPBS spoke to admit they're beginning to ignore the caution tape.
They need to get their energy, they need this, I need this.
Jessica Pruitt brought her 2 kids and nephew to Central Avenue Mini Park in City Heights one afternoon last week.
I mean, we tore the tape down last time. We're probably gonna end up doing it again.
Early on, Pruitt says she was committed to following the rules, but her resolve has weakened.
It's just if you take them to the park and they see the tape, they're not gonna care about the tape. They're just gonna wanna play.
Other parents have taken a different approach, saying that while they may not agree with the rule, they don't want to teach their kids that they can choose what rules to follow and what rules to break. Unfortunately for James McCann, that parenting group includes his mom, Liz.
We're trying very hard to use some of this as like a learning experience to a point about how we're doing this to keep other people safe, and we need to do things to stay clean, and so yeah, I'm not trying to raise a little scofflaw.
Claire Tregesser, KPBS News.
As the pandemic drags on, so does a need for food assistance for thousands of San Diegans. KPBS reporter John Carroll shows us how a local partnership is helping people keep food on the table.
I'm just glad they're here.
Thursday at St. Luke's Episcopal Church in North Park, and Dwight James is getting some much-needed food. This is a place where anyone who doesn't have enough to eat can stop by and get what they need.
They get limes, broccoli, potatoes, and onions.
St. Luke's partners with the Uptown Community Service Center and the San Diego Food Bank. It's one of about 30 super food pantries across the county.
The idea is to work with the San Diego Food Bank and provide a greater amount of food to people who are in need right now because of COVID-19.
The Uptown Community Center was providing food assistance long before the pandemic hit. But Allison Rowland says since the dawn of COVID-19, the demand for food has skyrocketed.
In January, we were giving out about 500 bags of food, and by April, we were giving out 1,500.
This story came to us from Father Colin Mathewson, who, along with his wife, the Reverend Laurel Mathewson, leads St. Luke's. He'd seen the story from a couple of weeks ago about the North Park fridge, which was removed after the business owner who allowed it to be there was told by his landlord to get rid of it or face eviction. Mathewson wanted people to know there was still a place to get help every day in North Park. Now, the ability to help is growing. As we all know, COVID isn't going anywhere anytime soon, so neither is the need for food assistance. And now Uptown is expanding what they provide to people from just dry goods to foods that need to be refrigerated. They just got these beautiful new commercial-grade fridge units a few days ago. That's good news for people like Lucia Phillip, whose husband lost his job due to COVID.
We don't have a lot, just we get the food and we're happy we have a food. You know, we just say thank you.
Lucia Phillip is doing more than saying thank you. She's now a volunteer helping with food distribution, helping others like her who've had their lives turned upside down by COVID-19. John Carroll, KPBS News.
The road to the World Series will run through San Diego. This week, Major League Baseball announced Petco Park will host 2 rounds of the American League playoffs. Usually, teams would play at their home ballparks, but the league is switching to a bubble setting like we've seen in other sports. The Padres, who are nearly a lock to reach the postseason, would play their playoff games in Texas. This year's San Diego Latino Film Festival was set to launch on March 12th. But that was when COVID-19 changed everything. KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando says the festival returns online this weekend.
The 27th annual San Diego Latino Film Festival is ready for its second launch, this time online.
It's been incredible. Flexibility is definitely the key. Flexibility, innovation.
Innovation to recreate the festival environment in a virtual format.
We have, again, over 140 movies, different filmmakers, actors that have made these wonderful films. It's about engaging them with local audiences. And so I'm really most excited about that live Q&A and virtual Q&A experience, because to me, that's been the most exciting thing to learn about these past few months, is engaging people online. Because people still need that connection. Yeah, we want to be in person, but for now it can be virtual, and it's still really powerful.
The delay in holding the festival, along with the move online, meant losing about a third of the films originally programmed. Most of those were bigger titles with more recognizable talent, says exhibitions manager Moises Esparza.
The loss of those films has definitely given some of our smaller films to kind of take the spotlight, which is really exciting and I think speaks authentically to what a festival should be about, highlighting emergent filmmakers who may not have distribution strategies in place, or distribution for that matter, and they're really relying on festivals as sort of their lifeline.
The festival's executive director, Ethan Vontillo, agrees.
Those are films that we should, as local San Diegans, be supporting and try to get these more Latino voices in front of the screens and more directors behind the camera. So it's important that we support these independent and maybe smaller films that we're screening at this upcoming festival.
Programming is divided into showcases by tags, such as Frontera for local filmmakers, Somos for LGBTQ, and Un Mundo Extraño for horror.
So I encourage people to pay attention to those tags, because those are kind of our way of nudging people in the direction of interesting themes and topics that we think would appeal to them.
There's something for everyone, but what's most exciting is that there are films that push people out of their comfort zones, thanks to the daring programming.
Yeah, so we are definitely envelope pushers. At least I try to be with some of my programming selections. I hope to push individuals to explore new sensibilities, different modalities. It's kind of like broaden their spectrum of what they perceive to be a good or acceptable film. One of those films that I think is boundary pushing is called Divine Love. It places religion in the context of the not so far into the future Brazil, and how religious overzealousy in a way has taken over society and controlled every aspect of the way of life.
Each year, unexpected themes arise, and this year there were reoccurring visual motifs of unrest and revolution.
And we see it in Pablo Larraín's Emma from Chile, where his protagonist essentially carries her on a flame torture and lights things on fire in her city. And it's meant to be not only destructive, but cathartic.
that unrest can also be comic.
I really love Pecado Original. It strikes me almost as a comedy of manners that, just aren't maybe made that frequently. It has a slight screwball edge, which I definitely appreciate. But when you're watching it, it really does maybe push at the boundaries of what a romantic comedy is.
Whether in person or online, the San Diego Latino Film Festival celebrates art and diversity.
Let's get together and talk about these movies, talk about the issues in the movies, celebrate and support these filmmakers. Because remember, it's important to support independent artists and filmmakers during this time of crisis.
Buying a ticket is an easy way to show support for the festival and to encourage artists to continue their work during this pandemic. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
That's all for this special edition of KPBS News. I'm Amitha Sharma. For all of us here at KPBS, thank you for joining us and stay safe.